Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Frozen Heart, Fated Soul. Episode 11. Chapter 101. Alejandro. The moment those words left her lips, I couldn't control myself. I pushed her back onto the bed and kissed her hard. I needed this. No, I wasn't going to break the promise I made to myself, but that didn't mean I couldn't have a little piece of heaven. The feel of her soft lips fighting for dominance against mine, her sweet taste and her intoxicating scent were all driving me nuts. She whispered, pushing me onto my back onto the bed. I raised an eyebrow as she straddled me, claiming my lips once more. I wasn't one to let women have their way or touch me so freely. But Kiera was my world. I watched her place kisses down my neck. Did it feel good? She sat back, pulling my shirt off. She glared at me. Don't stop me, she growled. Now that was. I smirked. Well, if you want to worship your king, go ahead, I said arrogantly. She rolled her eyes, breaking away and went back to kissing me. Do you like that, baby? She whispered. Stop, I said huskily, sitting up slightly. I don't want to, she said. I am not you here, I said huskily. She was about to say something, her large eyes looking into mine curiously before she gave me a small smile and nodded, wrapping her arms around my neck instead. I love you, she whispered, kissing me just behind my ear. Love you more. Now let's get some rest. You'll need it, I said. She nodded, stretching. I cannot wait to get back home. Home? As in our pack, right? I asked, trying not to look at her as I lay down and pulled her down next to me. Yes. The Nightwalker's pack. My pack, she said, closing her eyes as she snuggled into me. I smirked slightly, kissing the top of her head. Yeah. I'm glad you found your brother, she said quietly. I frowned slightly. Was it something to be excited about? I wasn't sure, but I knew he didn't have the perfect life. If you looked at it, none of us including Raphael had it easy. RAF had been 19 and was forced to become the alpha of one of the strongest packs in the country. Alphas typically took over at the age of 21 at the youngest, and even then, their fathers kept an eye out for them. On top of that, I admit I made life harder for him. Pushing him to the limit. Wanting him to break. To make him snap and to blame me for our parents' deaths. Flashback 6 months after Alejandro thought he killed both his parents. Al. Stop it! RAF shouted, pulling me off the two 18-year-olds. Both who were barely recognizable now. Get of me, you! I shouted, wrenching free as I turned and slammed him to the ground. Al, please listen to me, RAF said, as he blocked my attacks. No. Fight me like a man, or let me do whatever I want, I growled. Punching him across the face, his eyes filled with sadness. Simply blocking the worst of my attacks. Fight me. I won't hurt you, he said softly. I hated it. I hated his fake sympathy. I hated that fake love. I knew he was putting his alpha training on hold because of me, and until I slowed down, he would do just the basics. Usually alphas had to leave at the age of 18 or 19, until they were 21. They'd travel and train, the only thing they did with other alphas, the only unity between us. Apart from that, we were all just solo packs. I just wanted him to leave. I know he was holding off because of me, and I heard he would do a shorter term as he was needed here. But still, he refused to leave me so soon. Just leave. I hate you. I spat, slamming his head against the tree behind him. He gave me a small smile, but I'll always love you, little brother. I stepped back, hating his attitude. I'm a monster. The sooner you realize that, the better. I hissed. You're just hurting, he said quietly. I knew he had lied for me. Everyone thought our parents died in a rogue attack. He told me no one would know. That he'd always protect me. I didn't need his protection, I just needed him to leave me alone. I'm not hurting. I don't care. Dad deserved it. He did. I trailed off, my energy fading away. You can talk to me, Alejandro, anytime you need to. I will always be here for you, he said, grabbing his left shoulder as he pushed it back into place with a sickening crunch. I heard footsteps and the beta approached. He looked between us, and then directly at Raphael. Frowning after a moment. Your mind link is blocked, Alpha, he said curtly. Yes, because it is only my brother here. If you need to speak, speak openly, Raphael said. I shook my head. Whatever. Enjoy. I gave the beta the finger, before walking off. When I was out of werewolf hearing distance, the beta sighed deeply. If only either of they knew how good my hearing was. Ever since I shifted when I turned 13. I was faster, stronger and had better sight in human form than many werewolves. But I kept it a secret as Raphael had told me to. I had told him that day I killed my parents what had happened in the room. I had been too disoriented to focus on anything. He is a problem, Alpha Raphael. If I were you, I'd make some decisions soon. He needs to be broken into submission. I heard the menacing growl from Raphael as the beta was slammed into the wall. I simply shook my head. I was already broken, just not in the way they wanted. End of flashback. This was the reason that I think Raphael could use a brother and then would leave me alone, or at least he can have the family he deserves. I just hope Marcel didn't turn out like me, because he's sure what's on your mind. Kiera asked me softly. Just thinking back. I put RAF through. I think he could use a proper brother, I said, running my fingers through her silky locks, the perfect shade of caramel. She was my chocolate heaven. She slapped me now, making me look at her, raising my eyebrow. What was that for? I frowned. What do you mean proper brother? What are you? His sister. She snapped. I smirked. Calm down. I was stating a fact. No, you weren't. You need to stop with that. Honestly, Raphael loves you, she said. All right, fine, I'm not arguing with you because you need to go to sleep, I replied, shaking my head. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. She whispered. Hey. I said. Well, I think the name suits you rather well. She replied with a small pout. And let me tell you, that simple move was my head up badly. If you say so, amor mio. I said with a small smirk. The name wasn't bad. Yeah, I've never done this before, but it felt so right. I kissed her nose, before pulling her against me tightly. Frowning when I remembered one thing she had just said. Tamed. I was not getting tamed. How was I tamed? I looked down at her, about to say something when I saw her eyes were closed and she was drifting off into dreamland. Well, I guess I'll let it slide. If she thinks I'm tame, once I make her mine, I'll show her how far from tame I was when I devoured her entirely. Kiera, the next day I awoke, feeling a little cold despite Alejandro's arms around me. After we left the caverns we went to get a quick wash out by the lake, something Alejandro only allowed me to do after the area was definitely clear of all life. We then had breakfast before I started on the wendigos. Many had been killed last night, but in total there were about 32 that I would be able to heal. The process didn't take much out of me to start with, but after 13, I needed a break. Alejandro didn't leave me for even a second. He had contacted his men, who had been waiting at the outskirts of the forest to protect me, via mind link, and had told them about the turn of events. Come on, sweetheart, let's get some food in you. I've eaten, I just need some rest. I said, rubbing my head. From the ones I had healed, not all of them were mentally stable, and I knew they'd need therapy or some form of help. What broke my heart, the youngest Wendigo was a girl barely 17 years old. Ever since I had changed her back, she had refused to let anyone near her. She seemed terrified and intimidated by all the men around too. Can you give us some space? I said to Alejandro, looking towards the far corner of one of the cells, where the girl was huddled into a fetal position. Not even bothering with the clothes that had been given to her. Sure. He said, frowning deeply. I knew he hated leaving me alone for even a second, but I was glad that he let me do what I wanted, even if he didn't like it. Thank you. I said, tiptoeing to kiss his cheek. He turned at the last moment, catching my lips with his own. Then gave me an arrogant smirk before I walked off. Knowing his eyes were on me, I ruffled my hair with both my hands, letting my top rise up a little, giving him a good view of me. I smirked when I heard his heart race and almost skipped into the cell, feeling satisfied. My amusement vanished when I pushed open the door to the cell, sensing her turmoil of emotions, fear, guilt, pain. I wondered if they remembered what they did in their Wendigo state? If that was the case, this was going to be a lot harder. Can I come over? I asked softly. She tensed, curling up tighter. Stay away, she whispered. I just want to make sure you're okay. I know, it won't be easy. I knew we were being watched. It had been the same since the morning. Many felt confused that we were helping them without a reason. I just hoped they understood we were on the same side. And no, I'll hurt you. She whispered. You won't. I said firmly. I turned and looked at a few men who were watching, motioning to them that I wanted some food brought to me. One of them nodded and walked off quickly. I picked up the joggers and shirt that had been placed in the cell and walked closer. Come on, even if you're scared to hurt me, I assure you I'm pretty strong. You don't know that, came the quiet reply. Well then, I trust that you won't, because I see a girl who's been back in front of me, not a monster, I said, softly crouching down. Come on, get dressed. I told why you'll hurt you, she said, sitting up as she scurried away from me. I looked at her sympathetically. What's your name? I asked. Joanna, she replied hesitantly. I flashed her a smile as I glanced around the gloomy cell, lit only by a few lanterns which had been placed in the halls and here for me. Nice name, can I call you Joe? I'm Kiera. You can call me Kia. I sat down cross-legged, keeping a 3-foot gap between us. She nodded hesitantly, flinching when the doors opened and a woman stepped in holding a plate of food. I motioned her to pass it to me, before she gave me a small smile and left. I had gotten a lot of hostility from them since this morning, but as the day progressed, they seemed to be less cold towards me. You know, you can share what's scaring you, I said, pushing the plate across towards her. She flinched, slowly grabbing the pants and pulling them on clumsily. I looked away, giving her the privacy she needed until she settled down on the ground and looked at the plate. I'm scared to become that again, she whispered. I'm scared I'll kill someone again. What you became was not your fault, what you have done was not in your control. Joe. As long as your intentions are good, then you don't need to feel guilty. We have all done things we aren't proud of. I sure have, I said, giving her a small smile as I motioned to the food. Hesitantly, she took it. But you know what? We're human, well, kind of. We are bound to make mistakes. You know. I'm the one who turned you back, so as long as you are around me, you will be fine. I won't mind you staying close, I said softly. Really? She asked, looking uncertain. Really? I replied firmly. She nodded, giving me a weak smile before she began to eat. Her hazel eyes looked dull and I hoped one day their spark returned. I sat with her on that cell floor until she had eaten before I told her I wanted to go help the rest. She told me she'd just stay in the cell for a while. I just hoped she'd somehow heal. I was just about to leave when she spoke. Wait, I turned and looked at her. What's wrong? I asked. I want to speak to Dulsanra, can one? Of course, do you want me to call her? Yes please, she said, wrapping her arms around her legs. I stepped out of the cell and the 3 men who were standing there, looked at me. Queen Luna, the girl she speaks of, has escaped. Oh, I said, looking back at the girl who simply nodded in understanding and looked away. It took me a moment to realize what they had just called me, but as much as I wanted to deny the title, I was more curious about the girl. Who was she? A witch with magic darker than Endora, Marcel's voice came. I turned to look at him as Alejandro came over to me. Oh, I said, glancing back at Joe. I wonder why she wanted to speak to her. Don't you think you're saying that simply because Endora blinded you? Marcel shook her head. No, Endora clearly turned to the dark. That child. She was born from darkness, he said, frowning deeply. I just hope she's not caught, because Endora needed her, then it wasn't smart to let her go then, was it? Alejandro growled. To me. She was still a child, barely 16 years old. I'm sorry, but I am not going to hold a child captive when I am acting of my own free will. Yeah, but we could have at least kept her away from Endora. Alejandro shot back. Okay boys, I said, placing a hand on Alejandro's arm, before Marcel got fired up too. Is something else bothering you? He sighed and looked down at me. I felt a pack link break. I wanted to step out, get a cell phone connection and find out if it was Fred, or someone else. He said, his eyes flashing red. I nodded, my heart thudding at the thought. How was Auntie Indy going to take the news? I knew Auntie would always question if there was any chance of redemption. Would he have changed? I knew deep down those obsers like that never changed. I sighed deeply, hoping that Selene would grant my aunt the healing she would need to make it through this. Because it was surely going to devastate her. Alejandro, we were back on the road by sunset. I had organized transport for the wolves who needed it. Mainly the ones who had been treated and then a few pregnant women. Kiera had stated the ones who needed mental support would be kept at our hospital. I loved how she was already making decisions for our pack. She was the perfect Luna and I have no idea why I didn't see it before. She may only be 18, but I forgot that with the way she behaved at times. I had made sure provisions were made for the rogues. Food, tents, and all the correct supplies were ready at the edge of my pack territory. I hadn't mentioned Marcel's identity or even the witch's real identity to anyone. I had only passed on some information to my men who were waiting at the border of the forest and then get a crap signal to fill Darien in on a little. Raphael remained at my pack whilst he had sent Rayhan, Maria, and Rayhana back to their own pack. I would tell him in person, it was going to be a lot of crap to take. I had also found out whose pack link I had felt breaking. It had indeed been Fred who had been killed. I could tell the difference between someone breaking a pack link and death. Darien had confirmed everyone else was accounted for. There was no way he would have been able to survive, and although he deserved it, I had lost one of my best men. I had sent him to his death without even a chance of him getting a proper burial. Perhaps making an example of him would have been better, to make sure something of the sort didn't happen again. But that was Indigo's secret and I knew for a fact she wouldn't have allowed it. Kiera placed a hand on my thigh and I glanced at her. Are you okay? She asked softly. You can sense it, hey? I said, one of my many gifts. She said lightly. But I could see the concern in her eyes. And you're my gift. I said, cupping the back of her neck and kissing her softly. Her lips were the softest, most sweetest things ever. Well, there was only one other place that tasted better and that belonged to her too. Once we're back. I was thinking if you're ready, shall we set a date for the marking ceremony? A marking ceremony? She asked. Although I wanted to marry her, I didn't want to rush that. As king, they expect me to mark my mate in front of witnesses as it's, in a way, marking you as their queen. If anything were to happen to me, for you to get complete rule, we need to do it publicly. Nothing will happen to you. She said, frowning. I know, but still. So we need to mark each other. As much as I'd love the privacy, I don't mind showing the world, including a few, that you're mine. She let out a small laugh. Possessive alpha mode, hey. Nowhere near anything like your old man, I said. Speaking of Dad, we need to break this news to them about our baby. She replied, placing a hand on her stomach. We'll set the marking ceremony as soon as possible and call only the main alphas. Guess we could break the news to your parents when they come. Overall, I want to keep it hidden for as long as possible, I remarked. Reaching over, I placed my hand over the one she had on her stomach. The pleasurable sparks shot through me and our eyes met. She smiled gently and nodded. That makes perfect sense. I think it's best to as well. Before we faced Marcel, they mentioned a woman. There's someone amongst us who's a traitor. Mind if I burden you with keeping an eye out for anyone letting off any bad vibes? I don't mind at all, she said, her smile only growing now. What are you smiling at? You really can be so sweet. You are actually really adorable, she said, reaching over and tugging my cheek hard. I glared at her. I'm not adorable, I growled. You are. I looked at her as she laughed, looking out at the setting sun. The sun shone off her hair, making it glow. The light hit her skin just perfectly. She had never been scared of me. She had never thought of me as a monster. I simply looked away. I wanted this life with her, and I would make sure nothing destroyed it. But I had seen Andora's capabilities. If worst came to worst, I'd do anything to protect Kiera and our pup. I just hope it never gets to that point. I will think about that when the time comes. For now, I just wanted to enjoy each moment with my queen. Although the timing was not the best, I intended to take her out on a date and make her mine in every way. We reached pack grounds a while later. Darkness had fallen, and I waited on the edge of the pack territory for Marcel at the location where the rogues could rest. His wolf was similar to Raphael's, just more grungy, and he was a leaner. He made normal werewolves look like cute furballs. I was so glad I wasn't a werewolf. He shifted back and one of my men passed him some pants and a shirt. He looked around at the provisions and I saw the confusion in his eyes. This is all for us? He asked. No, my pack is just planning a sleepover out here. Obviously, it's for your people, I replied sarcastically. He raised an eyebrow before he nodded, motioning for his people to come closer. The wounded have gone ahead with a few of your warriors into our pack grounds to be treated and taken care of. For security reasons, you are not allowed on pack grounds without permission. You may set up your patrol as you wish, as I know you're probably thinking I'm waiting for you to fall asleep before I tear your heart out. But don't worry, if I wanted to kill you, you'd be dead, I said coldly. That's him being nice, Kiera added from where she stood next to me. I smirked coldly at him as he now frowned, looking at Kiera. I knew he was probably noticing her slightly off gaze. I glared at him but he said nothing, not even bothering to look at me. I was glad he didn't at least check Kiera out, unlike all those shoals like Rayhan. I still felt like giving him a beating to get it out of my system. I just hope when he finds his mate, she makes it so hard for him, he'll feel pain. Yeah, I liked the idea of that. What's on your mind? Kiera asked. Why? I sensed happiness. She said. Yeah, I was picturing someone getting T0 Richard. I snickered. She sighed. Right, she said with a shake of her head. Well, if your men are fine to set up, want to meet your brother? I asked Marcel. As long as he's nothing like you. Marcel shot back. Nope, you two are more alike. Raphael is sweet and kind. Kiera said, making me frown. I swear if I knew that he wasn't just like an uncle to her, I'd want to break Raphael's teeth too. The number of times she called him sweet. Let's get this over with, I said, leading the way, my hand holding Kiera's tightly. This sure was going to be interesting. We got to the mansion to see Raphael was already waiting for us at the entrance. Kiera. AI. He said, as he gave me a big bear hug and a kiss on the forehead. I won't lie, even if Alejandro was my mate, Raphael had always been like family to me. He tried to hug Alejandro, who shrugged him off and wrapped his arms around me instead. RAF, meet Marcel, the so-called king of the rogues. Another one like yourself, one who happens to be your twin brother by the way. Not to mention that the witch behind all of this is actually our mom. She faked her death to make me into a monster, kinda worked. So, it isn't just the two of us, there's the evil witch and a long-lost brother. I think I pretty much covered it all, right guys? Alejandro said, sounding mocking and unbothered. I blinked and nodded slowly at the blunt reply. It took Raphael a few seconds to comprehend, before his eyes snapped to Marcel. I could feel the storm of emotions going through Raphael, along with the slight anxiety and tension from Marcel laced with hesitation and doubt. I have a twin, Raphael said as he looked at the man who stood at the same height as him. Both men were bulky and strong, but you could tell that Marcel was leaner despite the bulging muscles. Signs of a harder life. Not sure how true it is. Andorra could have been lying, Marcel said curtly. I would have known if she lied, she was telling the truth. I added helpfully. Raphael smiled sadly. I think we have a lot to talk about, but come, give me a hug. He said. Alejandro scoffed as Marcel raised an eyebrow. But Raphael didn't care as he pulled him in for a big manly hug. Welcome home, brother. He said, with a smile that made his eyes light up. Yeah, don't think this is home. Marcel grunted. Yeah, it's my house, and I hate the fact that you've made yourself at home here. Alejandro retorted, glaring at Raphael, who simply smiled at them both. Of course, I will make myself at home. Tell me, Kiera. As the soon-to-be lady of the house. Are we welcomed? Of course, I think I'm already the lady of the house, right handsome? I asked Alejandro. Handsome, Raphael said, scratching his chin in amusement. Yeah, but that doesn't mean calling crap into the house. Alejandro muttered, pulling me close and kissing my forehead. Raphael looked shocked, now staring between us. Wait, you two made up already? He asked. The bright lights that illuminated the front entrance made his eyes sparkle even more, looking like a child whose Christmas had just come early. What's that supposed to mean? Alejandro growled as we all began walking towards the entrance. It's just... wow, I'm happy. Raphael grinned, like a proud father. It means you tried, Alejandro. He did, I said, with a smile. Can we not discuss this? Bu.tt out of my business. Alejandro growled at his brother. I reached up, pulling him down slightly as I tiptoed, placing a soft kiss on his jaw. Our eyes met and I saw him swallow before he claimed my lips in a rough, passionate kiss. Goddess! I was not expecting you to have gotten there already. I will need to tell Eli no. I said, blushing at how quickly I spoke. I'll tell Mom and Dad. Raphael chuckled. Very well, he said. We all entered the smaller living room and sat down on the black leather sofas. The mood darkened considerably as Raphael looked at the other two MEM. So, care to fill me in on Mom? He said quietly. Alejandro sighed, leaning back against the sofa, putting his arm around me and pulling me against him. I snuggled into him as he began filling Raphael in on everything that had happened. Marcel and I gave our input along the way, before the room fell into a deep silence. I'm sorry you had to go through the guilt. When she just played us all. Raphael said, frowning as he looked at Alejandro. I told you. I don't care, he said, his tone dark. I knew he did. It was the very reason he didn't want to get close to me. There was a knock on the door before it opened, and Claire came in with some refreshments. Once she left, Alejandro looked at the three of us. I've called Darien to join us. We need to make a plan. Endora will surely make her move and probably soon, he said. Marcel nodded. She has other aces up her sleeve. I don't think she can make more wendigos and manangals, or I hope not, but she will have a plan. She will attack this pack. That was the original plan. She said she'd wait for the stars to align when the magic she holds is the strongest, but we were never told a date. That's going to be a issue. I don't think we can even find Janina, and from what I know, if witches are not given their last debt, they won't give us any more information. We didn't manage to get that necklace. Any idea? Alejandro asked him. My best guess, within this month. She was using the witch she had held captive to provide her with answers she couldn't get herself. Dulsanra right? I asked. Marcel nodded, just as the door opened and Darien stepped inside, looking between Marcel and Raphael. It seemed Alejandro must have filled him in as he didn't look too surprised. I'm Darien, the beta of this pack, he said, holding his hand out to Marcel, who shook it. He then sat down and Alejandro picked up a mug. So, you were saying? He said, passing it to me and taking another. I welcomed the warmth of the mug as I cupped it, nestling my head against Alejandro's chest. I don't know much about this girl, I was never allowed near her. He said, shrugging. I wonder if that was just in case she lifted the influence Endora had on you. I mean, that's if she didn't side with Endora willingly, that is. I said thoughtfully. I will never know, but if there is a chance we can find her, just to get answers, it would be ideal. I know I didn't want to go after her, but maybe it's the only choice. Marcel said. Why do I feel like you don't want this girl Med? Alejandro asked sharply. I could sense Marcel was hiding something. He now looked at his hands, guilt rolling off him in waves. I once felt like magic was involved. So, when I questioned Mom and Dora, she said that I was correct, but she didn't tell me just in case I became worried. She told me she'd find the one behind it and make them pay. A week later, she brought that girl. This was just under a year ago. I was shocked that someone so young could be behind it, but I could sense the darkness from her, the vast level of her abilities. Even then, I saw innocence in those blue eyes. My instincts told me she wasn't behind it, but my mind told me to let Endora carry on. She was beaten and goddess knows what else. Mom dealt and commanded who went near her. You were being influenced. I said softly. That doesn't pardon my actions. He muttered. Alejandro put his already empty mug down and opening the coffee table drawer, took out a lighter and a packet of cigarettes, lighting one. I watched him, how cute he looked. He glanced at me as he took a drag of his cigarette and I looked away. My heart was pounding and I knew everyone here could hear it. Goddess help me. Here's what we'll do, we can send a team of trackers. Do you have anything that belongs to her? Or know where she's from? Raphael asked. She isn't hard to miss, under 5 feet tall, very skinny, and her hair, it was as white as snow. Blue eyes, she isn't going to blend in. He replied. I'll call Rayhan, he's one of the best trackers. Raphael said. You shouldn't leave your pack without an alpha. I'll return then, we can't waste time. Raphael said. Alejandro nodded. I can send some of my wolves with your team who have seen her. Marcel said. That would be a lot of help. I'll get Drake, Dustin, and Valentine. Darien said. Has his maid had her pup? I asked. I wasn't sure if she had, or if it had been mentioned and perhaps I had missed it. I felt a bit bad for being so neglectful and not even inquiring. Yes, actually, so he's ready for this mission. He has been meaning to speak to you, but things have been hectic. I understand, I wanted to as well. I'm just glad he is okay. I said, smiling slightly. Darien grinned as he looked between me and Alejandro. I'm glad to see the two of you have worked things out. He remarked. I blushed, I guess so. I replied, feeling all eyes on me. Right, on that topic. I'm considering initiating her as soon as possible, mark her and make her my queen and Luna. Call just the council advisors. 2 nights from now, I'm marking her. Keep it small and advised strongest alphas to send their beta or delta in their stead if they so wish. With the current situation, I recommend they all stay put in their packs, but I don't want them peeshing I didn't invite them. I'll tell Elijah myself, Alejandro said. My heart was pounding at his words. 2 days from now. Oh, goddess! Is that fine by you, amor mio? He asked. Everyone looked at me, as Darien and Raphael exchanged looks, smirking knowingly. Sounds perfect. I said, realizing that this was it, Alejandro and I would soon become one. Perfect. Then I guess tomorrow I need to take you shopping. Okay, now I'm terrified of this new Alejandro. What have you done to my brother Kiera? Raphael teased. Darien laughed, even Marcel smiled ever so slightly. Seems like he's totally whipped. Darien added. Alejandro growled. I'm not. I won't be anything like you, he said, glaring at them, his alpha aura rolling off him in waves. I simply smiled, knowing a simple touch would calm him down. But I'd let him pretend he isn't. I giggled, clamping my hand over my mouth, my eyes widening as Alejandro glared at me. Despite not sensing any anger from him, he was clearly unhappy. Just thinking about something, I said innocently. I know for a fact you are anything but innocent, he said, smirking at me. He glanced at Marcel. Darien, escort Marcel back to where his pack are allocated, and if he wants to visit the hospital, let him. Got it, Alpha, Darien said, standing up. Once they left, Alejandro looked at me. Our eyes met and I knew what he wanted to ask. If I was okay with telling Raphael about the baby. My heart warmed at the very thought. It meant, no matter how much he denied it, Raphael meant more to him than he would admit. I have a small nod. I honestly can't believe you two have worked out. I'm so proud of you both, Raphael said. I could feel the genuine happiness from him. Yeah, about that, Alejandro said, scooping me up into his lap. I gasped, but relaxed the moment his lips touched mine, sending a ripple of pleasure through me. I'm going to share some with you, and I expect it to stay between us, Alejandro said. With all going on, and what I told you about what the witch we met told us, we need to make sure this news does not get back to Andorra in any way. Okay, Raphael said, sounding a little confused. Kiera's pregnant, with my pup. Alejandro now smirking as Raphael gasped, his eyes widening into saucers. But how? You two just made up? Oh wow, no, you mean you two have already? Oh, Goddess Elijah is going to murder you. Oh, this is really good news. I'm going to be an uncle. Wait, so you don't need to mark someone to get them pregnant? Have you used protection? I mean, what if there's other Alejandros walking? Shut up, man, I've always been careful, Alejandro growled. The thought of him with others sent a pang of jealousy through me and I wrapped my arms around him, frowning deeply. We hadn't really discussed each other's lives, although he knew enough about mine. All I knew was he had a high drive. He had said he lived off, and then there was what Auntie had told Raven and I. Oh, Goddess! I needed to fill Raven in too. I just hope I could persuade Dad to bring her along for the ceremony. Okay, good. Great. I'm going to be an uncle, he whispered loudly. Come on, give your brother a hug. Okay, not this man. I wish I never told you, Alejandro growled. Give him a hug, I said, getting off his lap, much to his annoyance. He glared at me and Raphael before he stood up and gave his brother a bone-crushing hug. I swear I heard something crack. Raphael simply chuckled, slapping his back. I am so proud of you for doing the right thing. And I don't mean getting Kiera pregnant. I mean accepting that you deserve every happiness that comes your way, he said softly. Yeah, whatever, Don't get mushy, and don't tell anyone about this pregnancy. Maria included. Not until we have settled stuff with Endora. Got it. Raphael said. I took a deep breath, thinking of the danger that was now on our doorstep. Soon we would have to face her, and when that time comes, I knew it would cost us many lives. I just hope that we will be able to defeat her. I was sure we could. We had to. Failure was not an option. Alejandro, I awoke at dawn. Although I didn't want to leave my desire in bed alone, I needed to train with my men. I knew what was going to come and I wanted them to be in the best of shape. My room had been redecorated since that mess that had been made in here, and I could tell Serena had made everything a lot lighter. I couldn't really complain, it was better for Kiera. I needed to make sure I got someone to buy some touch lamps and to get some wiring done so I can add a light switch near the bed. I looked at the woman in my arms. My hard-on was going to be the end of me. I really wanted her and I was getting so annoyed off with this rule I had put in place for myself, but I wouldn't change it. I slowly slipped my arm out from under her head. She stirred, then only snuggled into me even more. This was a mission. I kissed her lips softly, only for her to M0an against my lips. Okay, I needed to get away from her now. It took all my willpower to slowly unwrap my arms from around her and rest her head on the pillow. Her pouty plump lips were slightly parted and I smirked. She was cute. I had a woman I loved, one who was made for me and one who I could no longer imagine life without. Alpha, will you be joining us? Carnman's voice came through the link. I sat up, letting my feet touch the freshly carpeted floor. Yeah, coming. I replied, coldly. I couldn't forgive her for what she had done to Kiera. Baby. Kiera mumbled. I turned back. I loved her morning voice even more than normal. You're awake? I said, now leaning back on my elbow as I looked up at her. My eyes schemed over her tousled hair, her bodice strained against her silk crop top. My eyes dipped to her stomach and the band to her silk trousers. Where were you going? She asked. Training, I said, stroking her thigh. Although all I wanted was to stay in bed with her and do things with her that I was trying to hold off from. I reached up, tangling my hand into her hair as I pulled her down and kissed her hard. A soft sigh left her lips. Did it just make things harder for me? I pulled away, swallowing hard. I think I should join. I haven't done much training since I got here. You know, Dad and Mom made sure I trained. She said, despite the sleep that clouded those gorgeous eyes of hers. You're pregnant, amor mio. Take it easy, give it a couple of days and I'll be making sure you get one of a workout. I leaned over, kissing her neck. Smooth and flawless, perfect for me to mark her. I kissed her down over her bodice, her scent intoxicating me as I went lower and placed a soft kiss on her stomach. My heart rate quickened as I moved back and looked away. I didn't miss the small smile on her beautiful face. You know, werewolves can train when pregnant. We can fight too. We are not fragile humans. She said. I was glad she wasn't being annoyed and teasing me about being a weirdo by kissing her stomach. True. Just get some rest, I'm taking you out to shop later. Get 2 dresses, one for your coronation as queen and one for our date the day after. Our date? She repeated, raising an eyebrow. Well, did she want me to ask her out? Yeah, I'm taking you out the day after tomorrow. You got a problem with that? She smirked and raised an eyebrow. I haven't agreed and you haven't asked. So I might have plans. She said this while running her fingers through her hair. I clenched my jaw, glaring at her. I take back what I said earlier. She was annoying as shame. I loved her still. Fine, let me rephrase that for you, I said, sitting up. I smirked when her heart began racing, despite how amused she looked. Please do, I'm waiting. She said. I'm taking you out Friday night whether you like it or not, so I want you to buy a dress that you love so much, that when I tear it right off you, the loss of it hurts. Because before the night ends, I'll beat you so hard you won't be able to walk for days after. I said, not missing the way her dot rose and fell. Or the way her eyes flashed purple, a faint blush on her cheeks. I smirked, gripping her neck as I looked into her eyes. So tell me, amor mio, want me to fulfill your dirtiest fantasies? Or do you want to carry on with your non-existent plans? I ended mockingly. In this game of teasing, I would always win. The sweet, intoxicating scent of her AR-0USAL hit me like a drug that I wanted to sniff forever. When you put it like that, she said. A gorgeous smile crossed her lips as she reached out, running her hand over my DCK that was already hard for her. My eyes flashed red as I hissed at the pleasure that rushed through me. I sprang off the bed, trying to control myself from taking her right now. Glaring at her as she giggled. I think she just won this round. She smirked, getting out of bed. I think my beast forgets that I'm Kiara Westwood. It's hard to win against me, wouldn't you agree, Alpha? She said, purring out the word alpha. I watched her dangerously, if only she knew how much self-control it was taking me. Her smile only grew, and I swear if I didn't know she was a wolf, I'd have sworn she was a Cheshire cat. She reached for the hem of her top and slowly, teasingly, pulled her top off over her head and tossed it to the ground, baring her divine tits to me. Like what you see? She teased. I did. Her large brie dottists were perfect, with those pink buds. Her tattoo only made her look 10 times hotter if that was possible. Okay, I'm done. I didn't reply, turning and heading to the window. I pulled it open and jumped out, hearing her burst out laughing. I clenched my jaw. No way did she just tease me like that. Kiara teasing Alejandro was so much fun. I knew if he hadn't set that rule for himself, I would be the one on the losing side. I had to admit, him trying meant a lot. I just wished there was something I could do to make it up to him. I know he didn't expect anything from me, but why was he the one only trying to go out his way for me? And the way he asked me out. Oh goddess, I wanted to spread my legs and beg for him to me right then. But instead, I chased him away. I pouted, remembering how he had been fighting himself. I had sensed his emotions. I smiled softly as I entered the bathroom to shower. It was gorgeous, with a huge corner tub, a huge shower that was large enough for 6 with a full overhead shower. I could get used to this. There was so much more to him than what he acted like. It broke my heart knowing how hard his life had been. I would make sure he didn't miss out on anything from here on out. I played with the necklace around my neck. I hadn't removed it and didn't intend to. Not with Endora out there. PP'd out of the rest of my clothes and got into the shower, wondering what time we were going to go shopping. After showering, I got dressed, realizing that all my stuff had been brought into Alejandro's room. It seemed everyone here knew we were together. I picked out some denim shorts, a lemon yellow vest top and a white cardigan to go over it. I blushed lightly, thinking I should at least tell Mom and Dad that we worked things out. Sitting on the bed, I unzipped my makeup pouch just to put on a few essentials. I set my phone up on the bed and video called Mom's phone. I brushed my hair as I waited for her to answer. Soon enough, she and Dad appeared. I shook my head, noticing they both had just freshly showered, which meant they had clearly been up to their usual morning shenanigans. Dad, don't you have training or anything to do? I asked. Don't worry, I'm teaching Liam so he's prepared for when he takes over in a few years. It's still early. He replied with a smirk, kissing Mom's shoulders. I raised an eyebrow, noticing the marks around Dad's neck. I knew the only reason Mom wasn't littered with marks was because she was fast to self-heal. How's Auntie? I asked. She's not good. She felt it when Fred died. She's angry, mainly with Alejandro. Mom said, sighing. I looked down. He had only tried to help her. Oh. I said. I heard you both had a run-in with Endora. Who happens to be RAF's mom? How are you? Dad asked. I saw his eyes looking at the room behind me and frowned. That's not the room you were in when I was there. Yeah, this is Alejandro's room. I said, feeling my cheeks burn. Mom smiled slightly, as Dad frowned. At my age, you and Mom were, already at it like. Never mind, I'll be nice. Besides, we haven't done anything in this room, Dad. I said, thinking maybe it was better if Alejandro broke the news. And I should have added yet. I intended to make memories here. I didn't ask. Dad growled. You're not marked either, About that, we're holding the marking ceremony tomorrow evening. I said, as I applied some mascara, looking into my small mirror. Are you happy? Dad asked. I nodded, smiling, and he gave me a small smile. That's the main thing. Wow, that's great. So, he's going to make you his publicie? Mom asked approvingly. Well, yeah, he said he wants me to take that position up and be recognized as his queen before Endora returns. My stomach sank after saying those words. My heart thudded suddenly. I dropped my mascara on the bed as my eyes filled with tears. A strong wave of sadness drowning me. What was this? Kiara. Mom said, worried. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Feeling my powers surge, my wolf howled and I felt suffocated. Emptiness, sorrow, and sadness wrapped around me painfully. Angel. Kia, Dad's voice came in the distance. I blinked as I looked around, realizing where I was and took a deep, shuddering breath. I shook my head, wiping my eyes carefully. I'm fine, I said, taking a makeup wipe and wiping under my eyes. I just suddenly felt sad. He'll be fine, he's the strongest man I know, don't worry. He won't be facing Andorra alone. Dad said quietly. I nodded. Was that what this was? The fear that something would happen to Alejandro? Are you sure you're okay, Kia? Mom asked softly. Yeah, I'm just worried for him. I said, my heart aching. I'll be there too. Your mom and Liam will stay here and I will be facing Andorra with you. I won't let anything happen to him. Dad said firmly. I saw the pain and fear in Mom's eyes and I realized that inevitably many would lose their mates. That in itself terrified me. I nodded and forced a smile. Will you both come for the marking ceremony? I asked, trying to push the upcoming darkness out of my mind. Definitely, Mom said. Can you ask Raven's dad if she could come too? I asked. I will try. Mom said. That man is grumpy. Dad added. Mom smirked. Well, he's just not one with much patience and he's very old school. With a daughter like Raven, Dad added. I smiled. They weren't wrong. Well, please ask at least. I pleaded. We will. Mom said. Well, I better go. See you guys tomorrow. I'm going shopping. Isn't it dangerous? Dad frowned. With Alejandro, Dad, don't worry. Also, is it possible you could bring all my stuff from my room? I asked, looking at Mom. She nodded, a wave of sadness crossing her eyes. My girls all grown up and leaving home for good. She said, looking a little upset. I'll come to visit. I said softly. Mom nodded but said nothing. I knew that, unlike me, she hated crying and showing when she was sad. I bid them farewell before I finished getting ready. Almost 2 hours later, Alejandro and I were in his car. Luckily, he had invited Serena along to shop as he said he was not going to be going dress shopping, he was only there as my guard. Serena had also brought her 13-year-old daughter Tia along. They were in another car along with 2 other guards. Alejandro held out a platinum card. The pin is 8,942. Buy whatever you want, and I'd advise you get plenty of lingerie because I will be tearing those off you on a daily basis. He said arrogantly, as he took a puff on his cigarette. I have my card, I said. I don't give a if you do or not. You're mine, I'm going to pay for whatever you need. He said firmly. Fine, I said, taking it. My fingers brushed his, and he leaned over, claiming my lips in a rough, passionate kiss. Thank you, I said when we broke apart, my heart going wild. What for? He asked, kissing my neck softly. For everything, I said, before we both got out, seeing Serena standing there with an excited young girl who was watching me. Oh wow, she is beautiful. She said in a loud whisper. Hi Tia, I said with a smile. I'm Kiara. You can call me Kia. Oh Tia and Kia. She exclaimed, then looked at Alejandro. Alpha Al. She said, lowering her head slightly. You've grown. What have you been eating? Alejandro asked, ruffling her hair despite the frown on his face. Grandma's special dishes. She said, before we all trooped inside. Not missing the admiring glances Alejandro received from the annoying women whose eyes trailed over him appreciatively. "Why have you brought her for?" he asked Serena, as he tossed his cigarette into a trash can a few feet away. "She just got back, so I thought why not?" Serena replied. I saw them look at each other, realizing they were mind-linking. Serena blushed and nodded. "She's going to keep you company," she added quickly. I wondered what Alejandro had said. Honestly, I glared at him and he raised an eyebrow. "What did you say?" I asked quietly. He wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me closer, his lips brushing my ear, sending a rush of pleasure through me. "I only said that you're going to need stuff that is maybe a little too explicit for a 13-year-old's eyes. I'm not wrong, am I, amor mio?" Our eyes met. No, he wasn't wrong, because there was plenty that I wanted to buy, and he was right. Some of it, I don't think it would be suitable for a 13-year-old. "You're never wrong," I whispered, using his language. A smirk crossed his lips as he pulled me against him and kissed me hard, igniting that flame of desire within me. Neither of us cared that we were in a crowded shopping center. His one hand slipped under my cardigan, squeezing me cheek as he slipped his tongue into my mouth, tasting every inch. "Oh, goddess, this man!" He broke away after a moment, an arrogant smirk on his face. "You are perfect," he murmured. I caressed his chest before moving away forcefully. "As are you, so, shall we get going?" I asked, my cheeks burning as I realized how several people were watching us. Not to mention Tia staring open-mouthed. "Sure, never thought I'd ever come shopping. There's a first for anything alpha," Serena added. "There sure is," he muttered, as Serena and I nodded, now looking around. "Okay, dress for tomorrow first?" she asked. I nodded. This sure was going to be a long day. Alejandro shopping. I don't even get why it's called that. It should be called torture from hell. I mean, yeah, I wanted to treat her to a new wardrobe, but having to play the guard? No thanks. Kevin loved to shop, and he was in there shopping along with them. It was one of the reasons I invited him. At least he'd be there in close proximity if there was an attack. Whilst his mate Adam, Tia, and I mainly hung outside getting stares. The only shop I was tempted to go into was the L. and Jerry one. Yeah, I wouldn't mind picking out a few crotchless pieces for her. Maybe next time. Just the image of her in one of those messed with my head. Not to mention her morning antics were still clear in my mind. After 5 hours, we were done, but I was more concerned about her ankle than my own boredom. I could see the limp in her walk when she came out, and I wished I didn't suggest this trip. Her eyes met mine and they lit up. I didn't bother smiling back as I walked over to her, scooping her up into my arms. "Alejandro." "I'm fine," she said. I simply shook my head. "I didn't even think," I said quietly, feeling the stab of guilt rush through me. "Hey. I'm fine," she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. "You can put me down, people are staring." "I don't care," I growled, as Tia giggled watching us. "I know," she replied, amused. She sighed and simply rested her head on my shoulder. I'll just pretend I can't see the stairs. I didn't miss the stairs, so I knew what she meant. We got plenty as we walked by, not that I cared. We got to the car while Kevin and Adam loaded the bags. They put a few bags in my car, while I placed Kiera in the passenger seat. Once I got in, I reversed out of the parking lot and looked over at her. Got what you needed? More than what I needed, thanks to you tempting me with that card. How rich are you? She asked me. I smirked. Rich enough to pamper my woman. I replied. Thank you, I did feel bad to start with. Then I kind of just got excited and carried away. Kevin. That guy was not a good idea to bring along. Anything I looked at he insisted I bought it. She said with a small smile. I smirked, yet I knew Kevin would do that. Well, at least he got you to shop. Did you find the dresses? I did, but they needed some adjustments, so Kevin will collect them tomorrow for me. She replied. Perfect. Our eyes met and she leaned over to kiss my lips softly, leaving me lost for a second. I still couldn't believe this was real. The way she kissed me. Those tender smiles. Those looks. But I'd just have to get used to it, because Kiera was mine to keep forever. I smirked arrogantly, thinking in the end, she really was all mine. Why are you feeling so satisfied for? She asked. Oh yeah, I forget her abilities. Just how you're all mine. I said. She nodded, Alejandro. Yeah. Mind if I ask you how many women you've been with? She asked hesitantly. Okay. I did not want to have this conversation. I glanced at her. I've been with 3 people, including you. She said quickly. Yeah, that didn't make me feel any better. The M0OD in the car suddenly felt tense as I ran my hand through my hair. I'm 34 going on 35. I've been sleeping around since before you could walk. I said, my words stabbing me as I watched her. No matter how emotionless she behaved, I didn't miss the pain in her eyes. Yeah, I know we shouldn't have secrets. But if she wanted to know, did I hide it? I couldn't. So countless women, including one from our pack when you visited. She said, now turning her head to look out the window. How did she know about that one? I parked up suddenly and she looked at me in surprise. Kiera. I'm fine, I was expecting as much. Or more. I was just curious if you have a number or not, or any actual relationships. She asked, brushing her hair behind her ears. Hey, Alpha, is everything okay? Why have we stopped? Adam's voice came through the link. I wanted to stop. Stay put and do not mind link me, I shot back with irritation. I'm fine, let's go home. She said. No. Not like this. I took her hands and kissed them softly. You are the only woman I've actually had feelings for. Yes, pain or pleasure were the 2 things that made me feel alive. I said quietly. Not missing the flicker of pain as I said those words. But after a taste of you, I feel like I've been cheated my whole life. You're the only woman I've pleasured, the only woman who I've tasted and wanted to. I ran my hand up her thigh, feeling her tense under my touch. I didn't care about what effect she was having on me or I on her, I needed to tell her that she is all I want. After kissing you, when Jasmine kissed me, it was like sandpaper. You made every other woman lose their appeal. Like I said, I've not linked any other woman since you, even when I tried to. I couldn't, because all I could think of was you. I said it and I wasn't lying. Her heart was racing, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She sprang at me, knocking me back against the window, her arms around my neck as she hugged me tightly. Her delicious body pressed against me as her lips crashed against mine. I wrapped my arms around her, running my hands over her back as I kissed her back. I didn't care that we were in a tight car in the middle of nowhere. All I could focus on was her, my queen who was sending pleasure through me. I felt myself throb against her. Our eyes met and I saw the storm of emotions in hers. She kissed me, but this time I wasn't going to pull away. I didn't want to. I could feel her possessiveness in her touch. I really wished we didn't have these clothes between us. Oh, Alejandro! I sat up, sitting back in my seat, sliding my seat back as far as it could go. I couldn't, not anymore, I needed to do something. To show her that she was all I wanted. I couldn't fight it. Her heart thudded as she looked into my eyes before her lips crashed against mine once more. Pleasure consumed me as I kissed her with passion and desire. Fueling all my emotions into that kiss as she ground herself against me. I didn't let go, one hand tangled into her hair as I kissed her harder, drawing blood. The slight taste of blood mixed pleasantly with her sweetness. I pulled back, letting her breathe. My eyes flashed as she grinned against me, getting faster. That's it. Unable to stop it completely, that had been good. You're mine, she stated, her eyes flashing a vibrant purple as she looked at me. I smirked as I looked at her. I sure was hers. She was clearly staking her claim. My feisty was, when she got possessive. I've been yours from day one, baby girl, I murmured, tugging her close and kissing her neck as I inhaled her scent hungrily. She didn't reply, wrapping her arms around me tighter. I throbbed against her and I smirked as her eyes widened and she moved back to stare at me. I won't ever get enough of you, and that was not enough, I murmured. Your rule, remember? She teased, as she climbed off me. Well, it had been worth it. You look gorgeous when you're lost in pleasure, I raised an eyebrow, not sure about that, but you looked divine, I murmured. Al, there's an emergency, come home. Darienne's voice came. I frowned. What is it? Kiera asked about my sudden mood change. I asked Darienne the same question. It's a lot to take in. Come home, you'll find out. Make it quick. Endora's on the move. It was all had to hear for me to rev the engine and zoom ahead. What is it, Alejandro? She asked as she finished fixing her shirt. Darienne said something about Endora. She nodded, as I quickly mind-linked Adam, telling him I was going ahead. We were back home in record time and we both headed upstairs. I needed to change before anything else. The moment the door was closed, I pulled her close, kissing her deeply. She kissed me back, slipping her hands into the back pockets of my pants. If you want to rest, you should, I'm going to head to my office to meet with Darien and see whatever is wrong. I want to come with you," she said. I looked into her eyes. She sure didn't seem tired. I gave a curt nod. "Fine. I'm going to go change." She smiled and nodded. We both moved fast. She pulled on some fresh panties and jeans, and I won't lie by saying that I didn't check her out, as I did. Although her annoying cardigan hid most of my view though. 10 minutes later we reached my office, after I told Clara and Claire to take the bags from my car. The moment I entered the building, a familiar scent hit me, Jasmine. What was she doing here? As we neared, Kiara's heart began to race and I realized she had probably picked up the scent as well. I opened the door to my office, placing my hand possessively on Kiara's waist. I did not want her to feel insecure in any way. The sight before me was not one I was expecting. Jasmine was covered in blood, bruises and injuries. She wore an oversized shirt and she looked a mess. Callum was checking her over. "What happened?" I asked. "My pack. Endora destroyed them all." She broke into racking sobs as I looked at Kiara for confirmation. I couldn't believe her just like that. I couldn't forget what Marcel and Jake had discussed about a certain she. Speaking of, maybe I should ask him who they were on about. Kiara looked at Jasmine and I sensed a faint aura from here, before she looked at me and gave a small nod. So Jasmine was telling the truth. Endora really was planning on wiping out Pax. That TCH. I wouldn't let her get away with this. "Alpha, help me!" Jasmine sobbed. I frowned, looking at Darien. "Set her up in one of the apartments. And keep an eye on her every action. I don't fully trust her." "Okay, Alpha," Darien said. "How did you escape?" I asked her. She looked at me, looking ashamed. "I ran," she said. "I left everyone and I ran. There was no other way, and I think she wanted at least one person to live to pass the message on. Otherwise, I think she would have killed me too." "Fine, I'll see what we can do. I'll send some men to assess the situation and see if there are any survivors. As the only alpha heir to that pack, it was your duty to protect and stand by your pack. Not abandon them," I said coldly. "That's hypocritical of you, Alpha. If it was Kiara in my place, would you tell her to?" Anger rushed through me and I growled menacingly. "Watch what you say. Remember, you're talking to your king and queen," I said murderously. My anger rolled off me in waves and I didn't care that it was affecting everyone in the room apart from my desire. How dare she even imagine Kiara in that position? I wrapped my arms around Kiara possessively, pulling her against my chest. "No one would hurt her, I wouldn't allow it. Get her out of my sight and ask her whatever you deem relevant." I spat. I needed to talk to Marcel. As soon as possible. Kiara, I don't know what had overcome me in the car, but the thought of other women having a taste of my mate had made me feel jealousy like I have never felt before. I would make sure he made love to me enough to make up for the last 18 years of his life. I didn't expect Jasmine to come back into our life. She was, after all, one of his past women. One he had been willing to marry. The memory stung, and although I had moved on from it, the memory of her was brought back. I just wanted her gone. It was horrible of me, but I didn't like her around. I didn't sense any lies from her, but I also didn't miss the jealousy from her at the sight of us together. We left the office and Alejandro looked pretty annoyed. Of all packs, why would she target the Quick Fang? I asked. Maybe because it's close. I don't really know, but I need to alert all the packs. They need to make sure their people are safe. I should deploy some warriors. But at the same time, I know that might be her aim. He murmured. I realized how hard the decision must be for him. I placed a hand on his arm. You'll figure it out. I know you will. Ask the council what they think too. I'm sure you will come up with the best course of action. I said softly. I'm going to go ask Marcella a few questions. You should take it easy. He said, running his fingers through my hair, sending a soothing tingle through me. I will. I wanted to go to the hospital to see if I could be of any help. I said. He nodded and pulled me close, kissing me softly before he looked into my eyes. I'm going to say something that's going to probably annoy you off. But as long as she's here, and with the current situation, I'm going to appoint guards to follow you around, okay? I smiled softly. Nobody ever asked me if I was okay with it, they just did it. I nodded. Just that small act made such a difference, even if I didn't have an option, being asked like that meant a lot. I really did love him. I love you. I said. Tiptoeing, I pulled him down slightly, claiming his lips in a passionate kiss that sent sizzling sparks through me. Same, amor mio. He replied. I'll drop you to the hospital first. I nodded, as he took my hand and led the way out. Alejandro, I had dropped Kiera off after making sure she had 4 of my men watching her. I made sure they were mated before I chose them. I had made it clear enough that she was mine, also she was soon to be their Luna and Queen. But still men were star. I passed the rogue patrol, noticing they were tense but none moved to stop me as I made my way to where Marcel had just finished training a group of his men. He turned when he saw me approach. I'm going to cut to it. When we came to your pack, you were talking to that Jake about some woman. About a pack being destroyed. Who was she? I said. Marcel looked at me and sighed deeply. Yes, Jake was ordered to attack a pack with some help from Endora. She said it was all for the greater good. As for the woman, I'm on about Zidane's daughter. I froze at that and looked at him sharply. Daughter? Scarlet and Indigo had a sister? Who was possibly working against us? What was this? Yes, she was born to an Omega but was incredibly strong. Apparently, Endora always wanted me to marry her, although now I wonder if it was you she wanted her for instead. She always said that someone from that bloodline and someone from ours would create a powerful beast. Marcel said in his deep voice. I frowned. My mind was spinning with unanswered questions. Knowing Endora who had been pulling the strings, she would have sent this woman to me, the only woman I could pinpoint as that option. Jasmine. No way. This was messed up, but there was also a chance I may be onto something. Do you know what pack she was from? I asked. No, Endora didn't really share everything with me, he said. Right. I said. I guess I needed to question Jasmine personally. I needed to know when her pack was killed and everything she had done for the last few days. Suddenly, something Jasmine said back in the room made my eyes flash. Andorra destroyed them all. How did she know Andorra's name? Alarm bells were going off in my head. What day did Jake kill that pack? I asked quietly. The day you killed him. He had just finished with his job and came to see me. Jasmine's wounds were fresh. My heart was racing and I felt my anger growing. Got it. I said, turning and breaking into a run. Running back towards my pack as fast as I could. I sniffed her out and found she was in one of the apartments. Darien and Serena were just stepping out. They stopped when they saw me. I need to speak to her. She's bathing, Serena said. We'll wait. Serena, you can go. I said coldly. She nodded hesitantly and Darien looked at me. What is it? He asked through the pack link. Something isn't right. I know Kiera didn't feel she was lying, but that doesn't mean she might not be hiding stuff. I intend to use my alpha command. He looked at me sharply, but simply nodded. I dropped onto the sofa and took out a cigarette, lighting it up and taking a long drag as I waited for her. With each passing second, my anger was only growing. She came out, in nothing but a tiny towel. I knew she could smell me here and also knew she would pull some like this. Alpha. I knew you'd come, she said, her eyes sparkling as she saw me. I didn't miss her looking around to notice Kiera wasn't with me. Her smile faded slightly when she saw Darien was here as well. I have some questions and I want answers. I said quietly. Sure, what is it? She said. She looked a little uncomfortable. Was Bill your biological dad? I asked, cutting straight to the chase. She froze, her heart thumping as she looked up at me. Oh, no. I was right. She knew I had my answer. It would be wise of her to not lie. No, he adopted me, I was abandoned. She said. Another lie, I saw how her eyes flitted away. Okay, let's do this again. I said. My eyes blazed red and I glared at her, letting my alpha aura roll off me. Who are you and what is the truth? I growled. She began trembling as she fell to her knees under my pure power. I didn't often roll it out fully, but I didn't have patience for her lies right now. Jasmine. I'm just Jasmine. She whimpered. Were you abandoned? I growled. I was placed near the Quick Fang Pack's border. Placed. To be taken in. By who? I growled. I don't know, she cried. Who is your biological father? I asked coldly. She cowered as she tried to fight my command. That in itself was enough proof. Let me answer that question for you. I growled murderously. Zidane Malone. Correct. She flinched and began crying. I got the answer, this was not what I was expecting. I don't choose who my parents are. I have been raised by the alpha of the Quick Fang. He saw I was strong and adopted me. Why has my past got anything to do with anything? She asked. Andorra sent you to me, didn't she? I asked quietly. She tensed and looked at me, her face paling further. No. No, I love you, Alejandro. That's alpha to you. I growled back. I stood up, my anger pulsing through every vein in my body. You are working with her. Did you think I'd never find out? I thundered. No, I wasn't working with her. She saved my life. I was only. All she wanted was for you to have a strong mate. She shouted. I growled murderously. I was in front of her in a flash, when Darien stopped me. Let's see what she knows, he said through the link. You are not my mate or even worthy of it. You knew Kiera was my mate, but you still didn't back away. She may be your blood. This was Kiera's aunt in some messed up way. I wanted to kill her, but maybe I should withhold my decision until I got every ounce of information from her. Start talking or you die, I said quietly. I don't know anything else. She only wanted me to get close to you, but I actually fell in love with you. Please. No matter how badly you treated me, I choose you. Well, I don't. You're a liar. I know she sent you here, so you can drop the act, because I sure as ain't buying it. I growled. She know. I came because, did she send you here now? I thundered, kicking the table that was in the middle of the room. She screamed as it hit the wall, inches away from Darien, before it fell on the floor, splintering. No. She screamed. I frowned. Had my assumption been wrong? She was quivering on the ground, her head lowered. Put her under house arrest. She is not to leave this apartment and I mean it. Alejandro, please. For our sake. For what we had. Please don't do this, believe me. She begged. I didn't bother turning back to her. We had nothing. I will not take any chances, I said coldly. Please. She screamed, but I didn't care. Get Callum to get her blood and run it along with Kiera's. I need to confirm they're related. If she is, then I guess I would have to ask Scarlett what she thinks of it. Got it, Darien said. I kept the link open as I ordered 2 men to stand outside her apartment and keep an eye on her constantly, including one she-wolf to stay inside with her. I was not letting her out of my sight. Especially with Kiera here, I was not going to risk. Was she carrying anything when she came to the pack? Trace her steps and search the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if she dropped something somewhere. I've been around for far too long to take any risks. I sent the order out, frowning as I made my way outside. There was nothing I could do until Callum had some answers. Kiera, I made my rounds, healing even the smallest of injuries, and soon the hospital was entirely empty apart from the rogues who were still dealing with the trauma, although I don't think the hospital was the best place for them. They needed a therapist, but sadly this pack didn't seem to have a specialist in that department. Perhaps that was something we needed to apply and reach out to other packs for. It wasn't odd for people to join this pack as it was a more military-style pack. Callum had been called away and I was sitting with Jo asking her about her childhood and what she enjoyed doing. Are the rumors true? Jo asked as I sliced an apple for us. Which rumors? I asked, giving her a small smile as I placed it in the bowl. That you're the king's true mate. I am. Then why hasn't he marked you? She asked, suddenly looking a little scared. I'm sorry if I'm overstepping, not at all. As he is the king, we need to have a formal marking in front of other alphas. I replied, taking an apple slice. You will make a good queen, she said with a small smile, before wrapping her arms around her once again, nibbling on some apple. I glanced at the 4 guards who were set to watch me. There was Dustin, Julio, Brian, and another one I had never seen before called Samuel. I found them a bit much, but I understood Alejandro couldn't take risks. You remind me of her. Even when I was left in my cell when I was becoming that monster, she told me to stay strong. I don't care if they say she's a witch. To me, she was the only one who tried to help me from her cell, even though she was beaten. She said, looking sad. I knew they were sending Rayhan after her. I just hoped they treated her well. I believe you. Don't worry. I'm sure wherever she is, she's safe, I said with a small smile. I hope so too, she said, her gaze becoming fearful and dull once more. I wondered what exactly was going through her head. She talked for a while and then she would shut us all out. I knew it was going to take time, so I didn't push her. After staying for a short while, I decided I'd call Rayhan. I knew it wasn't my place, but I didn't want them to treat her like a monster or just a witch. Joe genuinely cared for her. I knew the 4 men might report back to their boss, my mate. I looked at them as they trooped out after me. I need to make a call and I don't need anyone to eavesdrop, I stated. We won't repeat the conversation, Luna. No, I reported back to the Alpha, if that's what you fear. Julio said with an annoying smirk. I have nothing to hide. I glared back. Well, fear not, Alpha gave no command to spy on you. Just to make sure you are safe, please make your phone call, Samuel said. I liked him a little bit at least. Stupid Julio. I gave him a dirty look as I took my phone out and dialed Rayhan, hoping he'd pick up. Hey, Kia. He answered after a few rings. Hey, listen, I'm assuming you're out tracking. Yep, the Snow Witch, he said. Any luck? I asked. Not yet, but the smell of magnolias and Elong. Elong is giving me a headache, he replied jokingly. I smiled. Well, for someone who's supposed to be a dark witch, she sure doesn't smell like one. No, not really, he said sighing. It's been hard to find her. I was told her powers are restricted, so she can't really use magic currently, but she's still evading us. Well, I called about something regarding Dulsanra. Her name, the witch, I said, frowning slightly. Ah, okay, Dad and Uncle just said the witch. I frowned. She is a person, not just a witch, one who helped other captives stay strong and morally supported them. I don't believe she is bad. So, when you find her, treat her as you would someone who is innocent. Kia. She's a witch. A witch who has done nothing wrong. Innocent until proven guilty, I replied firmly. He sighed. Fine, I'll try not to be harsh. I didn't know if Rayhan could be harsh. But then again, I had only ever seen his fun side. It didn't mean I was blind to the fact he was an alpha wolf. She was held captive by a witch and the rogues. She will hate werewolves. Don't prove her fear correct. Please. I pleaded quietly. Kiera, you're too kind-hearted for your own good. Witches are dangerous things. They never do anything without expecting something in return. Trusting one is stupid. I'm with Dad and Uncle on this one. I didn't say anything, even Raphael? Then I'll leave it to you. You can make your own judgment when you meet he, I said, feeling down. Kia. Why are you so concerned about a witch? Because she was a victim in this entire mess. Endora tortured her, used her. She's only 16. Okay, I get it. I can't promise anything but I'll treat her humanely, he said, with a sigh. Thank you. Anytime. I hung up and sighed. I just hoped she was able to provide some answers. Because we needed all the help we could get. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.